Hi, today I would like to start off from where I left off last time in the story of Mahabharata. Last time I narrated about the birth of Bhishma and some of his characteristics. This time it will be about sons of Shantanu. Remember, Bhishma actually took a vow, gave a promise to the chief of the fishermen, the father of Satyavati, that it would be one of the sons of Shantanu who would ascend the throne of Hastinapura. Sons are born to Shantanu and Satyavati. They were named Chitrangata and Vichitravirya. Chitrangata grew up to be a clever and a brave person. Vichitravirya was an impressive bowman. Chitrangata becomes the king of Hastinapura. On one occasion, another king by the same name of Chitrangata, except that he was the king of divine male magicians and singers called Gandharvas, fought a battle against the king Chitrangata of Hastinapura. The war went on for 3 years. It led to the death of Chitrangata of Hastinapura. Bhishma pays his last tributes, and now Satyavati asks Bhishma to act as a regent for the kingdom of Hastinapura. Bhishma agrees and becomes the regent of the kingdom of Hastinapura for a few years until Vichitravirya, the second son of Shantanu and Satyavati, becomes old enough to assume the role of kingship. Bhishma is thrusted as a good regent also because, as I told you before, when Ganga was about to transfer the custody of young Bhishma to Shantanu, she tells Shantanu that he had learnt the ways of kingship, and this particular characteristic is also in display right now. Later, Vichitravirya becomes the king of Hastinapura. Satyavati and Bhishma decide that he had to get married, and Bhishma took the responsibility. Bhishma got to know that king of Kashi was going to arrange a Swayamvara for his three daughters. A Swayamvara is a ceremony in which the bride selects the bridegroom from among a group of kings who are assembled in a hall, and then the bride places a garland of flowers over the neck of one of the kings, and that king would become the husband of the daughter of the king who arranged the Swayamvara or the ceremony. Bhishma, on knowing this, he left to Kashi or Varanasi as it's called on his chariot. When he reached the kingdom, he saw a lot of kings, valiant kings, and he also got the sight of the three daughters of the king of Kashi, and he thought that all three daughters would be suitable for Vichitravirya. He therefore took part as a king in the Swayamvara ceremony on the behalf of Vichitravirya. But even before the Swayamvara would kickstart, he forcibly took away the three maidens on his chariot and told everyone or told all the kings assembled in the Swayamvara in his loud voice that one rule of Swayamvara was that a king could forcibly take away the brides, and that is what he was doing. He also challenged the rest of the kings to fight a battle against them and come and claim the brides from him. Saying all this, he immediately sped away on his chariot towards Hastinapura. The rest of the kings slapped their arms, took away their ornaments, and picked up their weapons and immediately started chasing Bhishma. At a certain point, they confronted Bhishma with a lot of arrows. At one end, there were the kings who shot arrows towards Bhishma. At another, there was Bhishma alone who was shooting his own arrows. And none of the arrows or the kings could reach Bhishma because the arrows of Bhishma itself would overwhelm that of the opposition. The audience who were watching at the sidelines were awestruck by the overpowering intensity of Bhishma's counterattack. Not only the audience, but also the kings who were shooting arrows towards Bhishma, who were against Bhishma, were applauding the exploits of Bhishma. There came a point when none of the kings were interested in pursuing Bhishma anymore because of its overpowering intensity. But there was one king called Shalya. He was a chariot warrior and he would go forward and try to confront Bhishma. Bhishma, on seeing this, tells his charioteer to return so that he can resolve the matter. Bhishma then goes towards the chariot of Shalya and shoots arrows and brings down the horses of Shalya. and as well as kills the charioteer of Shalya. However, he lets Shalya escape uninjured. After dealing with the kings, he immediately sped towards Hastinapura and reached Hastinapura. Their arrangements were being made for the marriage of the three maidens with Vichitravirya. However, one of the maidens come forward and tells Bhishma that she had wanted to place the garland of flowers in the Swayamvara over the neck of Shalya. She had decided that it would be Shalya who would be her husband in her heart. And this was what even Shalya also thought about her. She also told Bhishma that all this was acceptable to her father. Saying all this, she told Bhishma that she had said everything that had to be said. Now it was Bhishma who had to decide on the future course of action. Bhishma respects her decision and decides to let her act according to her will. Remember, in the last part, I told you that a sage Vasishtha cursed 8 celestial beings called Vasus. However, 7 of them were relieved of their curse as soon as they were born as human beings. The 8th one would stay on earth because he was the main perpetrator of the robbery of the celestial cow of Vasishtha. However, the quantum of the curse was reduced by Vasishtha by ensuring that the 8th celestial being would be well respected and a virtuous man. And henceforth, and that Vasu was born as Bhishma, and Bhishma here is displaying his character of being a virtuous man by allowing the eldest of the 3 sisters, who was called Amba, to let her follow her wishes. The remaining 2 sisters were called Ambika and Ambalika. Both of them married Vichitravirya, and Vichitravirya and his wives lived happily for some years before Vichitravirya in his prime would succumb to convulsions. He died without giving birth to a child. Now here is a situation where the dynasty of Shantanu, the Kuru dynasty, would not have any sons to carry forward the dynasty. This was the fear that Shantanu had expressed Bhishma once when he said that what would happen of his dynasty if something happened to Bhishma. Though here nothing had happened to Bhishma, the sons who were the kings were dead. So the fears of Shantanu had come true. Now Satyavati asks Bhishma to get married so that their sons can ascend the throne of Hastinapura in the future. Bhishma denies this suggestion and says that he does not want to break his vow. Once he makes a vow, it stays a vow. And Satyavati tells Bhishma that she would like to consult Vyasa about the predicament that is facing the Kuru dynasty. Bhishma agrees to this. Vyasa is actually the writer of Mahabharata and a well-known saint. Then Satyavati mentally thinks of Vyasa, and Vyasa appears in front of her. Vyasa is only visible to Satyavati and no one else. Satyavati tells about the predicament that is facing the dynasty of the Kurus and asks help from Vyasa. Vyasa then gives her a boon so that sons are born to Ambika and Ambalika, and also to one of the friends of Ambika who was from a lower caste. The 3 sons were named as Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura. And once this happened, Vyasa leaves to his hermitage. Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura were brought up by Bhishma. Vidura, even though he was from a lower caste, was adopted into the Kuru dynasty. Dhritarashtra grew into a strong man, and Pandu was an impeccable bowman. Vidura, on the other hand, was more religious and a man of virtues. Later, Pandu was made the king of Hastinapura because Dhritarashtra was blind. Once Bhishma called 3 brothers to him and told them that it was time for them to get married because it was important to carry forward the name of the Kuru dynasty. Vidura then responds to Bhishma and tells him that Bhishma had taken care of them so well, he was akin to a father as well as a mother. So hence, if Bhishma thought that it was suitable for them to get married now, his word would be law for all 3 of them. Bhishma got to know from a Brahmin that the daughter of a Yadava king had obtained a boon from Lord Shiva that she would give birth to 100 children. Bhishma thought that she would be suitable for Dhritarashtra and therefore sends a messenger for conveying this proposal to the Yadava king. The name of the daughter of the Yadava king was Gandhari. It was finally decided that Gandhari would marry Dhritarashtra. Brother of Gandhari called Shekuni arranged the marriage ceremony and gave lavish presents to Dhritarashtra. Once marriage of Dhritarashtra was materialized, it was now time to get Pandu married. Even before knowing who married Pandu, I take you to another small story that is linked to the wife of Pandu. Bhishma had known of a daughter of chief of Yadus. Her name was Prita. The chief of Yadus had given the custody of his daughter Prita to his childless cousin called Kunti Bhoja. From this moment on, Prita was known as Kunti. Kunti had devotedly served a sage called Durvasa. Impressed by the service, the sage grants her a boon, and the boon is a mantra. A mantra is a powerful group of words. Durvasa told her that if Kunti had recited that mantra, she would be blessed with a sons whose characteristics would be akin or equal to the celestial beings in terms of valor and wisdom. Kunti was curious to test the efficacy of the mantra, and therefore she uses the mantra and invokes the sun god. Appears in front of her, and she is awestruck by the sight, as she tells him that she did not want anything. It was only to test the mantra that she had recited the mantra. But the sun god tells her it was important that he follow up on the word that he had given to Durvasa, the sage Durvasa. Therefore, he had to give her a son. A son was born to Kunti with a natural armor on his chest and also natural earrings. Kunti, apprehensive of the social stigma of having a premarital pregnancy, decided that this child would have to part with her. Then she puts this child in a box and floats it in river Ganga. This box is received by a charioteer named Atirata. On seeing the boy with a natural armor and earrings, he names the boy as Vasusena, one who is born with wealth. Vasusena develops into a strong man and is adept with all the weapons. He also turns out to be a generous person because whoever asks him anything which is in his possessions, he would give it without any second thought. Especially if the person asking the item or a thing or whatever they wanted was a Brahmin. On one occasion, the god of war called Indra disguises as a Brahmin and asks Vasusena to give up his armor to Indra. Without a second thought, Vasusena removes his armor that was stuck to his skin of the chest and gives it to Indra. From this moment on, Vasusena began to be called as Karna. Karna means cutter. In this case, the cutter of the armor. At this moment, I also want to compare the qualities of Karna with Bhishma. Bhishma is a person who is a strong will and follows up on the vows that he takes, even when the daughter of the chief, Satyavati, asks him to break it, the vow that he would remain the bachelor for the sake of the Kuru dynasty so that he can marry and give sons to the Kuru dynasty. If Bhishma is adept at keeping his vows, a Karna is a generous person and offers whatever he has if someone asks for it. Coming back to the story, I told you that Dhritarashtra was married. It was now time for Pandu, the king of Hastinapura, to be married. Kunti Bhoja, the cousin of the chief of the Yadus, who adopted Kunti, arranged for a Swayamvara. In this Swayamvara, Kunti chooses Pandu as her husband and both of them get married. Bhishma also thinks that it was important to get Pandu married a second time so as to secure the possession of sons for the dynasty. This time, Bhishma, along with an army, goes to the kingdom of Madura, which is ruled by Shalya. Shalya receives Bhishma and asks Bhishma of the reason for his visit. Bhishma tells him that he had come to the kingdom of Madara to ask for the hand of his sister Madri on the behalf of Pandu, the king of Hastinapura. Shalya readily agrees for the proposal, but Shalya also tells him that there had to be a payment of a large sum as bride price. To this, Bhishma agrees and arranges for gold and precious stones of various colors. After this, Pandu gets married to the sister of Shalya. Pandu lives with both his wives for 1 month, and after which he leaves the kingdom of Hastinapura to conquer the world. He defeats many kings and receives tributes from them, tributes of gold, silver, cows, cattle, etc. And then he comes back to Hastinapura and pays his tribute to Bhishma and other elders. Later, Vidura also gets married to the daughter of a king called Devaka.